Okay, so previously I taught you the basket weave. I taught you alternating two colors and bringing one color across and then the second color and then going back. And then I've shown you how you don't have to go all the way across and you can have two colors on either side. So that was this one in the packet, this one that I showed you, and this one. So now remember, I'm gonna skip this one and I'll go to this one. You need a new color or a new piece of yarn. So I'm gonna get myself a piece of yarn. And you don't have to use a needle. I'm going to go ahead and use a needle. And on this one, you go over 2, under 1, over 2, under 1, over 2, under 1. So I'm going to zoom in to my weaving. And I'm going to go over 2, under 1, over 2, under 1, over 2, under 1, over 2, under 1, over 2, under 1. Pull this across. And again, you don't have to worry about the last one that you did. Since this is a brand new one, you don't have to worry about doing the opposite of what you did before. It's going to be opposite. Now I'm going to over 2, under 1, over 2, under 1, over 2, under 1. Over 2, under 1, over 2, under 1, over 2, under 1. Over 2, under 1, over 2. I keep wanting to do the opposite of what I did last time, but it's just the same thing over and over again. Over 2, under 1, over 2, under 1, over 2, under 1, over 2, under 1, over 2, under 1. Over 2. With this one, you just do the same thing over and over again. You're not doing like over 2, under 1, over 2, under 1 going across and then coming back and going under 2, over 1, under 2. You don't alternate. You just keep doing the exact same thing again. So I go over 2, under 1, over 2, under 1, over 2, under 1. I never change. Over 2, under 1, over 2, under 1. And then you just keep going back and forth. Okay. So the next one in the packet is this kind of almost a sewing type of weave. So you're going to need two colors. Alright, you're going to start with one color. And with this one, you're going to definitely want to use a needle. So you're going to, this one's, you start with the simple over, under, weave. Over 1, under 1, over 1, under 1. Just the standard basic weave. So now I get my new color. And this time I'm looping around the white. So I'm going to pull the white down a little bit so you can see. And you're doing the opposite of what you did here. So let me zoom in a little bit closer. So you're doing the opposite of what you did. So if the white is on top of the warp like it is here at the end, I go under the warp. Then I go over the next one, but I cross over like I'm making an X with my needle. And then I go under and then back down. And like you skip one and then go down at an angle. Skip one and go down at an angle. So every time my white is on top of the warp, I go under it at a diagonal so that you get this looping effect. And this one can get a little tricky, especially when you have to go back the way you came. I always struggle going back the way I came. So this is the first one, and that's how you kind of get this loopy, swirly part of it. So now I go back to the white, and I go over, under, simple over, under weaving technique again. Opposite of what I did with the white before, not the same. Pull it across. Now you're going to come over with the blue. And before, with the blue, I went up and down at an angle. I think this one we go up at an angle. Okay. So let's see. Now I'm going to go through the loop and then down. Yes, I was right, down at an angle. All right, and then I go over this one and then down at an angle. Over this one and then down at an angle. So when the white is on top, I go down at an angle, and that's what I did before but I went down in an angle going left. As I was going left, I went left. Now I'm going right, so now I go down and to the right. Down and to the right. Because I'm going right. That's the direction I'm going. So that you get this loopy swirl. And then you push that up. Now the ends can get a little bit twisted, so you have to be careful when you're doing those. And look at the end when you start to make sure it looks fairly neat. So now I'm going to go back over with the white. And then back with the blue, and this time I go down and to the left because I'm going left. So put the white down a little bit. And I go down and to the left. Oops, get this blue twisted in here. There we go. Down and to the left, down and to the left. Whenever the white is on top, I go under the warp and the white, down and to the left. Twist, and then you push it up. All right. So there's one. Okay, the next one's the latched rug, the loopy one, okay? And so I'm going to do that with black, and what you do is you get a ruler, and you're going to cut off 4-inch pieces. So you're going to get a ruler, lay it down, you're going to take your yarn, lay it so it's 4 inches, and cut one, and then cut another one, and you want them about 4 inches long. So you're going to cut a whole bunch of these. This takes a while, so you've got to be patient. And then this one, there's no weaving involved. It's just looping it. And you can do more than one color if you want. You can definitely do more than one color, but I'm going to just do one color and show you. Alright, so you want to get a whole bunch of these. This probably isn't nearly enough. And it is this weaving technique is very tedious, but it does look pretty cool. So you're going to take one piece at a time. You're going to lay this piece over 2 warp strings, and you're going to kind of make a frowny face with the yarn. And you lay it over 2 warp strings, make a frown, and then you bring those up in between the 2 warps, grab the ends of the yarn, and pull up. And it makes a loop around like that, and then you pull it up and you make it kind of lay upward so it doesn't come undone, because if you let it lay back down it could come undone. So you want to kind of push those up. Now when you do the next one, you don't do the next 2. You do one from the last one and a new one. So I'm going to do one from the last rug latch and then this one, and then I go up between the 2 and I pull up. Okay, so if you look, we have this warp has 2 strings looped around it, and that keeps you from getting any holes in your weaving. Then you do one from the last, do a frown, pull it up, and you go all the way across doing this. And some people get really bored with this and don't want to do it, and some people take their time, and it does turn out pretty cool, but it is tedious, it takes a while, and you just have to sit and do it a ton. And you would go all the way across. I'm not going to make you watch me do that because it would take forever. And then after you go all the way across, you could do that a couple of times actually, I think. And then once you do go across, you want to take a piece of yarn and you want to weave the standard over under to hold it in its spot. So you want to go over one, under one, over one, under one quickly before they fall out. And pull across, and then you want to pull this up tight to hold that in its spot. And then you can leave them long like this, or if you want, you could give it a haircut. You could take and snip these and make them shorter. But 4 inches is a good length just to kind of be able to hold and loop. And then you could trim those off, and you could have shorter little rug lines hanging. But you really, really need to go across a couple of times, just over, under, right after you do the rug, weave so that it really holds those tiny little pieces in their spot and they won't come undone, because that would be really frustrating for them to come undone. Okay, all right, and then one last weave in the packet. So you're going to get yourself some yarn. I'm going to start with this pink here. Thread it through the needle, and it's basically just looping around every warp. Get that out of my way. Okay, so now you're just looping around every warp string, almost like you're sewing again, like you did for this loopy blue and white one that I did up here. So you're going to go down at an angle, pull it through, just one, and then you go back over the top of this. But when you go back over the top of it, you go under the next one too. So you do two at a time. And you get this loop that's made. Get that loop around there. And now when I go through, I go back over this first one and loop back through and go under the next one. And then you get another loop. Back over, under, so that as you go across, you're getting, this is looping around each warp. Once you get going, you kind of get the hang of it. But as you do it, you want to kind of work with each little loop around the warp to make sure they're even. And you don't have one that's tight around the warp and then loose around the warp and then tight around the warp and then loose. You can see my yarn is starting to get twisty around my needle. It's starting to kind of twist, and so that also does happen. So you want to be careful as you're doing this. Move around the last one. Okay, and so if I tilt this up a little bit, maybe you can see, yeah, you can see the loops that are around each one. It's like a curlicue line that goes around each warp. So now when I come back, I loop in the other direction. So it's very much like this one here, where we went down and to the left, down and to the left, down and to the left when we were going left. Now we're going to go down and to the right, down and to the right, down and to the right, because we're going right. So I'm going to go under the first one, loop back around and go under the second one. Loop back around. So now I go over or under the one I just went over, and again. Oops. And you just push those loops up close together. And I made mine pretty loopy, and they stick up a little bit and give it some depth, but you could really pull these tight to where they're really twisted tightly around the warp. It's up to you what your preference is. And that's the last technique in the packet.